Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is March 16th. On this day in 2021, a horrific series of shootings took place across 3 Atlanta area spas, leaving 8 people dead, 6 of whom were Asian women. The attacks all occurred within just 1 hour, sending shockwaves throughout the country and igniting conversations about racism, misogyny, and gun violence in America. The suspect, Robert Aaron Long, was arrested later that night after a police chase. While he claimed his actions weren't racially motivated, many saw the attacks as part of a disturbing rise in violence against Asian Americans amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we'll dive into the events of that tragic day, the investigation that followed, and what happened to Long after he was caught. Let's get started. What started as a typical day in Cherokee County in Atlanta quickly turned into a night of terror. The first attack happened around 5 p.m. at Young's Asian Massage in Ackworth, about 30 miles north of Atlanta. 4 people were killed and a 5th person was seriously injured. The victims there were Delana Ashley Yon, 33, Paul Andre Michaels, 54, Zhao Ji Tan, 49, and Dao Yu Feng, 44. Less than an hour later, at 5:47 p.m., Atlanta police responded to another shooting at Gold Spa, located in Buckhead, a busy commercial district in the city. When officers arrived, they found 3 women dead inside. Just as they were securing the scene, another call came in. Shots fired at aromatherapy spa directly across the street. Inside, police found another woman dead from gunshot wounds. The 4 victims from the Atlanta shootings were Soon Chung Park, 74, Hyun Jung Grant, 51, Sooncha Kim, 69, and Young A.U., 63. In total, 8 lives were lost that night, and 6 of the victims were Asian women. Surveillance footage and witness statements quickly led police to a suspect, 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long. As soon as police identified Robert Long, a statewide manhunt was launched. Officers issued a BOLO, a be on the lookout for a black Hyundai Tucson, the vehicle that had been seen fleeing the crime scene. By 8 p.m., just 3 hours after the shootings began, state troopers in Crisp County, Georgia, about 150 miles south of Atlanta, spotted Long's SUV on Interstate 75. A high-speed chase ensued, but officers used a pit maneuver, forcing his vehicle to spin out and come to a stop. He was taken into custody without further incident. Once in custody, Long confessed to the killings, but his explanation shocked many. Despite the majority of the victims being Asian, he claimed he wasn't motivated by race, but rather by a sex addiction and a desire to eliminate temptation. Authorities later discovered that Long had purchased a 9mm handgun from a gun store in Holly Springs, Georgia, the morning of the shootings. Thanks to Georgia's lax gun laws, he was able to buy the firearm with no waiting period, and just hours later, he used it to commit mass murder. From the moment the news broke, many people, especially within the Asian American community, believed that the attacks were racially motivated. The fact that 6 of the 8 victims were Asian women seemed to indicate a hate crime. You have to understand, too, that this shooting spree came at a time when anti-Asian violence was on the rise, fueled in part by racist rhetoric surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. But when police addressed the media, they shared Long's own explanation that he had targeted the spas because of his sex addiction and not because of race. During a press conference, Cherokee County Sheriff's spokesperson Captain Jay Baker described Long's mindset, saying, quote, "He was pretty much fed up and at the end of his rope. Yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did," end quote. This statement sparked outrage because it is insane. I hadn't heard that statement until I started working on this episode, and you should have seen my face when I read it. And actually, if you're watching this on YouTube, you probably have a pretty good idea. As you can imagine, many people felt that his statement sympathized with the shooter instead of the victims. Further controversy erupted when social media posts surfaced showing that Baker had previously shared anti-Asian content, including posts blaming China for COVID-19. Despite Long's claims, activists and experts pointed out that his view of Asian women as temptations to be eliminated was actually both misogynistic and racist, making this crime an act of gendered racial violence. When all was said and done, Long faced separate legal proceedings in 2 counties, Cherokee and Fulton. In July 2021, Long pleaded guilty to the murders at Young's Asian Massage. He received 4 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus an additional 35 years. This plea deal allowed him to avoid the death penalty, at least in that jurisdiction. But in Fulton County, where the Atlanta spa killings took place, prosecutors are seeking the death penalty and have charged Long with hate crimes. District Attorney Fannie Willis has been clear she believes race and gender played a role in these killings. The case, however, has faced delays, due in part to the COVID-19 backlog and legal debates over Long's statements. But as of March 2025, shortly before this anniversary, a judge ruled that Long's confession to police can be used at trial, rejecting claims that his rights were violated. The next set of pretrial hearings is scheduled for late April, but no official trial date has been set. The Atlanta spa shooting sparked conversations about the prevalence of racism and violence against Asian Americans, especially during the pandemic, along with the objectification and hypersexualization of Asian women. It, of course, also led to more conversations about gun violence and the ease of purchasing firearms, but obviously nothing came of that. In response to these attacks, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris met with Asian American leaders in Atlanta just days after the shootings. Congress later passed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which improved hate crime reporting and law enforcement training. Because of his quest to avoid temptation, Robert Aaron Long, who again was only 21 years old, will spend the rest of his life in prison and still faces the death penalty. 8 lives were lost and 1 was completely wasted for absolutely no reason at all. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!